Today we're going to be talking about a coaching tool called the Model. This was developed by my life coach, whose name is Britt Castillo, and this is the primary coaching tool that I use in my practice when I work with clients. And the reason that I love the way that she has organized this material is because it's super versatile. It can literally be applied to anything in your life, any results that you want, any behavior that you want to change, the way that you're feeling. It's just super linear. It's almost like a math equation, and it makes it really easy to literally solve any problem in your life, whether it's money problems, relationship problems, anxiety, confusion, depression, anger, grief, loneliness. Like, you can plug in anything and find the answer. So that's why I use it this way. It's very accessible. What I'm going to use it for today is to talk about relationships, and I want to use an example of, we've been talking about processing difficult emotions and how feelings impact your life, right? In the last video, I think it was, that I talked about the danger of disappointment, right? Like, I was feeling really disappointed in my life and my relationship, and I didn't realize how powerfully that was impacting the way that I was showing up. And so I want to do another example of this. Today I want to talk about a different feeling or a different emotion, and I want to talk about distrust. I've received some emails from people asking about, like, wanting to learn how to be able to trust again in relationships, and this is such a huge important component for so many people, and we're not going to be able to cover everything that goes into building trust today, but I do want to talk about why it matters. So this is just the example that I chose. I could come up with 100 of them, and this might play out differently in your life. I just want to show you how this played out in my life for me in my early 20s, and specifically as it relates to relationships, okay? So this feeling of distrust in relationships, I, for a long time, felt very avoidant. I didn't trust relationships. This is the attachment style model for analyzing relationships and how relationship dynamics play out. I won't go into all of that, but people who are avoidant are oftentimes afraid of emotions. They are afraid of intimacy. They build up walls. It's not safe. They keep people at arm's length. And I think underneath all of that is a fear that I'm not going to be enough, and intimacy is not safe. Emotions are not safe. The home that I grew up in, maybe you had an abusive parent, or just for some reason emotions weren't safe, and so you develop a belief system about that, correct? And for people who are anxious in relationship, they may have a very different belief system. It may be that they don't feel that they are enough or have enough, and so they have this constant need for external affirmation and external reassurance, and so they're constantly seeking that from other people. Like, they're just hungry for that in a way that these people are afraid of it. And secure relationships have a much more well-balanced approach to love and intimacy. They're not afraid of emotions. They know that emotions are safe, and they also know that their own self-worth is secure and that it comes from themselves and not from another person. And so this is the goal, right? Is to find this kind of secure style relationship. Well, I was feeling very distrustful for most of my 20s. And what was the reason for that? There was many reasons. But in the example I'm going to give you, the thought that I was feeling, the thought that I was thinking that made me feel so distrustful about relationships and dating specifically was that I only get crazy people. That was what I thought. The T stands for thought, and the F stands for feeling. So I thought this belief that I only get crazy people when I date, and so I felt very distrustful of the entire process of the dating scene. I was very cynical. How did I show up when I was feeling distrustful? Cynical, apprehensive. I showed up as emotionally detached. I was guarded. I was distracted. Maybe I would be talking to the waitress or the bartender. Say we went out on a date to a place that I knew, that I was familiar, that I knew the bartender. I would oftentimes spend my time talking to the bartender more than my date because I was feeling distrustful secretly of the person and of emotions, of relationship, of all of it. It had never worked out before. I had all these stories that I always get these crazy people and they're going to be either crazy jealous or, there's something that's going to happen. And I'm just going into it with that distrust, cynicism, and it's creating this emotional attachment. Maybe I'm on my phone or taking phone calls or doing other things just to communicate and keep that distance. And so when I would show up that way, I either wouldn't get a call back from the person and would remain single, or if I did get a call back, it was from somebody that also had a dysfunctional attachment style, which again, this is what this is all about, is the different ways that people show up in relationships. And so they may look at that emotional detachment that I'm putting off, and they might think to themselves, perfect. I'm not going to have to get vulnerable. I'm not going to have to, she's not going to rely on me for anything. Like, cool. And they're not going to be, secure and having that balanced relationship, but they might be attracted to that for a reason that serves their dysfunctional attachment style. Does that make sense? So, the result that I get, if I get a call back at all, so the R stands for your results that you get in your life, is the dysfunctional relationship. Okay. So I'm going to put, for circumstance, I'm going to put date. We're going on a date, right? I'm single, I'm out there in the world, I'm going on a date. This is what I'm thinking when I go on the date. Circumstance, date. The thought that I have is I only get crazy people. Huh, great. That thought creates a feeling of distrust, of cynicism, of apprehension. And when I show up in my life with that feeling, it drives my behavior, it drives my actions. And my actions totally communicate everything that I'm thinking and feeling and believing. Talking to the bartender, blowing off my date, going to shoot pool with the guys. Hey, I'm going to go play some pool. You can come if you want. You don't have to, whatever. Or if I am listening, I'm distracted, maybe scrolling on my phone. I'm communicating with all of my actions and behaviors, this entire belief system, and this feeling that I'm having is coming through. And so when I show up like that, I either don't get a call back and I remain single, because a secure person is not going to be interested in this entire setup. A secure person is not going to be interested in somebody who has this belief system, who has these feelings and these ways of showing up. And so the only person that is going to be interested in that is somebody who also has a dysfunctional attachment style and a dysfunctional belief system that for some reason jives with that, right? And so there's all this research, and you can read books about the codependent and the narcissist and why they're attracted to each other and how these different forms of dysfunction fit together, right? And so then I end up with a dysfunctional relationship. And the thing that's interesting to note here is that this result of a dysfunctional relationship totally comes back and proves my thought to be true. It's a vicious cycle. So the thoughts that we think, the stories that we tell ourselves, create our results 100% of the time. And I just want to show you that those results, you can tie them together. Our brains really want to prove themselves right. And so that's what it's going to create to support that belief system that you have set up. And so when we talk about processing difficult emotions, an emotion might come up for you like distrust. An emotion might come up for you like anger. An emotion might come up for you like self-doubt. Whatever that feeling is, just know that it's going to be driving your results. So yesterday when I talked about disappointment, I could put disappointment in this line right here, this F line, which is for feelings. I can write in when I'm feeling disappointed, and we can do that whole model too. I can erase all of this. And I can put right here, disappointed. And what do I get in my life when I'm feeling disappointed? How do I show up? How do I act when I'm feeling disappointed? What's the result that I get in my life when I'm feeling disappointed? I told you in the last video, when I'm feeling disappointed, in that example I gave you, I was acting, I was in pain, and so I was acting out, and there was anger and there was resentment that was coming up as well because of that festering. I allowed it to fester, and it grew into something bigger and bigger and more intense, right? And so as that happens, it begins to affect my actions. And I don't show up as a good person in the world. And so that's why processing these emotions, this is where feelings or emotions are so important, because it literally drives our actions and it drives our results in our life. So until we can learn to process those difficult feelings, those difficult emotions, those negative emotions, we're going to continue to get negative results. Okay, that's all I'm going to do for today. And in the next video, we'll talk a little bit about, okay, if I notice that I'm having a negative emotion here, like distrust, and I notice that it's driving negative results in my life, what do I do about it? How do I turn it around? And so we'll do the flip side of that in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys. It was good to talk, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.